Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. India and Japan hold the 15th annual summit in Tokyo amid push for deeper ties. Joint declarations on security, digital partnership, space exploration and clean hydrogen signed. India and Japan partnership is rooted in mutual trust, says Prime Minister Modi, as both sides chart the roadmap for strengthening partnership for the next decade. Addressing the India-Japan Economic Forum in Tokyo, Prime Minister Modi says combination of Japanese technology and Indian talent can lead tech revolution of the century. Thailand's youngest Prime Minister, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, sacked by Constitutional Court over ethics violation. Her term ends after just over a year in office. And India celebrates National Sports Day in memory of hockey wizard Major Dhyan Chand. And Hockey Men's Asia Cup 2025 kickstarts in Rajgir, Bihar. So the 15th annual India-Japan summit was held a short while ago in Tokyo. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shigeru Ishiba chaired the summit. The annual summit between India and Japan represents the highest level dialogue mechanism that exists between the two countries. It drives the agenda of the India-Japan Special Strategic and Global Partnership. India and Japan exchanged agreements on the sidelines of this 15th annual summit. A detailed joint statement, long-term vision document on bilateral relations and joint declaration on India-Japan security cooperation were exchanged. Other agreements included Memorandum of Cooperation on Japan-India Digital Partnership 2.0, Joint Declaration of Intent on Clean Hydrogen and Ammonia, Memorandum of Cooperation on Mineral Resources, Memorandum of Cooperation on Joint Crediting Mechanism and Implementation Agreement on Lunar Polar Exploration Mission. Addressing the joint meeting, Prime Minister Modi said that India and Japan laid the foundation of a new and golden chapter in their special and strategic global partnership. Prime Minister Modi announced that to further deepen economic ties, Japan has pledged to invest 10 trillion yen in India.
आज हमने अपने स्पेशल स्ट्रेटेजिक एंड ग्लोबल पार्टनरशिप में एक नए और सुनहरे अध्याय की मजबूत नींव रखी है। हमने अगले दशक के लिए एक रोड मैप बनाया है। हमारे विजन के केंद्र में इन्वेस्टमेंट, इनोवेशन, इकोनॉमिक सिक्योरिटी, एनवायरनमेंट, टेक्नोलॉजी, हेल्थ, मोबिलिटी, पीपल टू पीपल एक्सचेंजेस एंड स्टेट प्रीफेक्चर पार्टनरशिप, ये प्रमुख बातें हैं। हमने अगले 10 वर्षों में जापान से भारत में 10 ट्रिलियन येन निवेश का लक्ष्य निर्धारित किया है।
Prime Minister Modi said that bilateral relations have expanded steadily in scope and ambition over the last decade. He reiterated India and Japan's united stand on free, open, rules-based Indo-Pacific.
भारत और जापान एक फ्री, ओपन, पीसफुल, प्रॉस्परस एंड रूल्स बेस्ड इंडो पैसिफिक के प्रति पूरी तरह से प्रतिबद्ध है। आतंकवाद और साइबर सिक्योरिटी को लेकर हमारी चिंताएं समान है। डिफेंस और मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी से हमारे साझे हित जुड़े हुए हैं। हमने निर्णय किया है कि डिफेंस इंडस्ट्री और इनोवेशन के क्षेत्र में आपसी सहयोग को और सशक्त किया जाएगा।
So addressing the joint meet, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba called for more high-skilled talent from India for the growth of the Japanese economy.
Indian STEM talents are highly competent, but the Indian students coming to Japan to study are less than 2,000. We need more high-skilled talents from India for the growth of Japanese economy and for the vitalization of the local communities.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi began his two-day visit to Japan with attending the India-Japan Economic Forum in Tokyo. Speaking at this forum, Prime Minister Narendra Modi explained the ties with Japan, which are strategic, powered by economic logic. And he also said that India is the springboard for Japanese businesses in the global south.
India and Japan's partnership is strategic and smart, powered by economic logic. We have turned shared interest into shared prosperity. India is the springboard for Japanese businesses to the global south. Together, we will shape the Asian century for stability.
Highlighting changes in defense and technology sector, Prime Minister Modi said that Japan is a tech powerhouse while India is a talent powerhouse.
जापान टेक पावर हाउस है और भारत एक टैलेंट पावर हाउस है। भारत ने एआई, सेमीकंडक्टर, क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग, बायोटेक और स्पेस में बोल्ड और एम्बिशियस इनिशिएटिव लिए हैं। जापान की टेक्नोलॉजी और भारत का टैलेंट मिलकर इस सदी के टेक रिवॉल्यूशन का नेतृत्व कर सकते हैं।
The Prime Minister further said that together, India and Japan can replicate the magic that they created in the auto sector, in batteries, robotics, semiconductors, shipbuilding and nuclear energy as well.
भारत तेजी से 2030 तक 500 गीगावाट रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के लक्ष्य की ओर अग्रसर है। हमने 2047 तक 100 गीगावाट न्यूक्लियर पावर का भी लक्ष्य रखा है। सोलर सेल्स हो या फिर ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन, साझेदारी की अपार संभावनाएं हैं। भारत और जापान के बीच जॉइंट क्रेडिट मैकेनिज्म पर समझौता हुआ है। इसका लाभ उठाकर क्लीन और ग्रीन फ्यूचर के निर्माण में सहयोग किया जा सकता है।
Earlier, Prime Minister Modi received a rousing welcome with a cultural performance from the Indian diaspora. Prime Minister Modi acknowledged the performers with appreciation and exchange of smiles. Chants of Modi and Bharat Mata Ki Jai, that is Hail India, echoed during this welcome. Indian diaspora shared their experience on meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Listen up.
Japan leki swagatam It was a very exciting meeting, and I could talk to him, I could shake a hand with him, and I am considering myself very fortunate.
The way he's connecting people, it's amazing. I'm very inspired by his personality.
It was very nice meeting the Prime Minister Modi today, and it's a very important time between India and Japan.
It's a lifetime moment. It's like a dream come true. I'm just have a goosebumps when see Modi ji in front of me. It's really, really very good moment of my life.
Wonderful, marvelous, and very exhilarating.
It felt very good to meet Modi ji in Japan.
It felt good to meet him, and I got his Ashirwad also. And the India and Japan's relationship are really good. I hope it continues. Jai Hind.
India and Japan have historically enjoyed very great diplomatic and cultural relations, and Modi ji is the epitome of all that. And I think he's going to take India to even greater heights on the global platform. We are very honored to have met him and gotten his Ashirwad today. Jai Hind.
Japanese dignitaries also called on Prime Minister Modi in Tokyo. Chairman of the Japan-India Association and the former Prime Minister of Japan, Yoshihide Suga, met Prime Minister Modi. The two leaders spoke about the many dimensions of India-Japan cooperation and how it can further be deepened. Their discussions covered how to build closer collaboration, including in technology, artificial intelligence, trade, investment and beyond. Further, Prime Minister Modi also met former Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, terming him as a great advocate of closer India-Japan ties. Prime Minister Modi said that the discussions were related to the progress in bilateral partnership across trade, critical technologies and human resource mobility. Both the leaders also discussed the vast potential in emerging areas such as technology and semiconductors. Prime Minister Modi also held a wonderful meeting with the Speaker Fukushiro Nukaga and group of members of parliament from Japan. They discussed the strong and friendly relations between India and Japan with a special focus on parliamentary exchanges, human resource development, cultural exchanges, cooperation across key sectors including the economy, health, mobility partnership, artificial intelligence, science, technology and more. Chief priest of Shorinzan Daruma Ji Temple, Revseishi Hirose, presented Daruma doll to the Indian Prime Minister. The Daruma is an iconic cultural symbol and souvenir of Japan. It is modelled after Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen Buddhism. They are known as a symbol of perseverance and good luck, often used to represent setting and achieving goals. The tradition involves filling in one eye when a goal is set and the other eye when the goal is achieved. It also symbolizes the virtue of never giving up. Its rounded bottom makes it pop back up when tipped over, like the saying, fall 7 times, stand up 8. Talking about Daruma and its connection with India, it is based on Bodhidharma, an Indian monk from Kanchipuram, known in Japan as Daruma Daishi. It is believed that Bodhidharma meditated for 9 years continuously facing a wall with his limbs folded. That is why the Daruma doll has a peculiar rounded shape with no limbs and no eyes. And we have with us Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, former senior diplomat. Welcome, sir, to DD India NewsHour. First of all, what has provided this very solid base for the long-standing India-Japan cooperation in various fields?
Well, India and Japan share a very unique and special partnership, which goes back a very, very long way. But what we have seen is that ever since we established a strategic partnership, it has grown in leaps and bounds, and it has gone across different sectors, which makes it very vibrant and future-oriented. Way back in about 10 years ago, we had established the global partnership of the strategic partnership, and that global dimension gave India and Japan the ability to work on a lot of areas which were beyond our own countries. Today, I understand we shall be extending it to the next vision statement for the next 10 years. So our relationship has been always based on mutual interest, trying to advance our cooperation in all areas, having a very strong economic, scientific orientation, very, very good political understanding, of course, and being responsive to the concerns and of the world and the regions around us. And finally, since it is future-oriented, it always has hope.
Yes, indeed. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in his address after the annual summit that India-Japan partnership is rooted in mutual trust. Your comments on that statement?
This has been from the very beginning. You would recall that in the past, we've had many of our old leaders, Netaji included, who had gone to Japan and had sought assistance for our freedom movement and had collaborated. And he led the Indian National Army. There's a strong contingent and support. But I wanted to highlight this because the cooperation actually permeates across different sectors in all walks of life in Japan. You will find a very strong and warm sentiment for India. And that's because of the very strong foundation that was laid by Netaji, by Tagore, and many others in the past. But in today's time, what we find is that as we are in a kind of geopolitical flux, where so much is changing around us and geoeconomics is changing, we find the complementarity of relations. We are the fourth and fifth largest economies globally. We are today the largest, the fastest growing economy. Japan is a huge powerhouse of technology. And I think together we lend stability to the Indo-Pacific. So I think in all this, if you put it all together, you have a natural complementarity and a partnership.
Okay, so during the India-Japan Economic Forum, Prime Minister Modi said India is a springboard for Japanese businesses to the global south, and together we can work for the stability. He said we will shape the Asian century for stability, growth and prosperity. Could you elaborate this?
Japan has always believed that it needs to expand its industrial structure, its technology overseas so that it can collaborate with viable, reliant, resilient partners. And you would recall that in the past, Southeast Asia, there were countries there that Japan collaborated with. Then there were huge investments in China. But today, the largest by scale, as Prime Minister Modi said, in terms of opportunity, in terms of the growth rate that our economy has, India is the most vibrant opportunity for any country. And of course, Japan realizes that. About a decade ago, the Japanese industry had realized that there was great potential, and you saw how many of these big industrial investments came into India, whether it was in the infrastructure sector or automotives. Today, we are looking at a new range, which are actually, so to say, the new technology areas, whether it is semiconductors, AI, robotics, automotive engineering, and so on, green hydrogen. And in all this, you will find that the Japanese are actually global leaders in terms of the technologies that they have developed. And they're looking for a very viable and reliable partner with whom they can work. Japanese industry is now of the opinion that the kind of ease of business that we provide, that the kind of reforms that we have continuously undertaken, and the environment in which the Japanese businessmen work and operate over here is most conducive. So this is actually what gives them an edge as they look ahead. So if we are looking at make in India, export to the world, the Japanese business is now plugged into that.
Okay, so Japan has agreed for a 10 trillion yen investment in India and infra support over the next 10 years. How significant is this agreement?
So this has got many components, as you know. The Japanese have identified 8 different sectors, some of which I had mentioned just now. And what will happen is over the course of the next few years, these will unfold into joint projects that we shall unveil. And this will put us into a scenario where we develop the capability both jointly as well as individually to complement each other. A lot of industrial production in the new sectors will not only have a higher growth rate, market capitalization, but also have a greater penetrative strength into the new markets that are emerging across the world, whether it's in Asia, Africa, or in the developed world in Europe and America. And so that will become a huge potential. In addition to that, there is another aspect of the investments, which are the soft loans, which we get the Japanese yen loans, which is going largely into the infrastructure sector. The Shinkansen instance, I would like to repeat, is a very strong example of India's commitment to high technology and quality, and the fact that sometimes you have to pay more to get the best kind of technology, because the kind of leverages that they work out in the rest of the economic system will far outweigh the additional cost that you might pay in the initial days. So I think the Japanese business is now understanding that India is a market of great hope. Also, when you look at building resilient supply chains and value chains where knowledge becomes a more important factor, India will be the way ahead.
Yes, the two countries have agreed to bring resilience in the supply of critical technology, with the AI and semiconductors a top priority. Your take on that, sir?
You know, we are already engaged with the Japanese in some of the R&D activities that are being currently undertaken in Japanese and Indian laboratories in cooperation, in the spirit of cooperation. This will provide the foundation to the kind of exchange of ideas, because at the end of the day, what we do find is that tomorrow's world will be the world of ideas where knowledge will dominate. We've already seen that knowledge has a much higher capability. Japanese are hugely plugged into our startup system, and a number of the startups that they have actually provided support to are in that specific knowledge domain. Whether it is in AI or quantum or green energy. Japan is a global leader in green hydrogen. We have got great skills in biofuels and solar, so those are some of the areas that we can exchange and have the complementarities. So I do see that this will become a huge potential as we move ahead.
Okay. Now, India and Japan are also members of the Quad. Now, in the advent of the strained India-US ties because of tariffs, what can India and Japan do together for the stability of the Indo-Pacific?
I think there was a realization quite some time back when we came up with the idea of the Indo-Pacific that there was a need for greater collaboration and working together, particularly in the maritime domain for security reasons. But what India and Japan brought to the table was to expand the understanding of the Quad from beyond the security domain towards a more holistic approach, which looks at development, which looks at stability, which looks at some of the cultural connections, and it looks at new technologies and critical components, as you also mentioned. So when we look at Quad as we go ahead, and as you know, India is scheduled to host the Quad this year. The foreign ministers have met, and the summit should take place later this year. The collaboration and the understanding between India and Japan would provide a strong foundation for bringing the other partners in so that we can have concrete outcomes at that particular event as and when it takes place. But I must also add that what it also does is provide great fillip to the Indo-Pacific initiative, of which the Quad is a very strong component. And the Indo-Pacific understanding is something that has gained momentum over time, and this particular visit will give it much greater strength.
Okay. India and Japan have also agreed for collaborating in the Chandrayaan-5 mission. There has been an MOU between ISRO and JAXA, that's Japan's Aerospace Exploration Agency. Huge potential there as well?
Yes, space has been an area in which we have collaborated, and this is an area in which we have expanded cooperation as the decades have rolled on. There was a time when we worked together on satellites. We put up some nano satellites, experimental satellites, spatial imaging. So I think we've done a lot together. We were actually neck to neck in the Chandrayaan missions of ours when the Japanese also sent a mission that landed on the moon. We sent ours, and I think there has been since then much greater collaboration on this and many others. Actually, the collaboration between ISRO and JAXA is a very wide-ranging collaboration in which you also work with some of the other, for instance, the European Space Agency as well as NASA. And so it is a very vibrant form of cooperation. But the Chandrayaan mission is actually very important, and it will provide great instruction and advice also to our big mission, which is of Gaganyaan, and also the space station that we would eventually wish to set up. So that kind of collaboration is actually ongoing with various partners.
Okay. Ambassador Bhattacharya, next generation mobility partnership featured a lot in talks today. In fact, Prime Minister Shiba in his statements after the talk said that there is an immense scope of diversifying the movement of Indian students to Japan. So how critical is that component of our bilateral partnership?
You know, this relationship between India and Japan is unique and special, as I mentioned, because it recognizes how the two can plug into each other's systems and build on the advantages and take care of the difficulties. So what we do know is that India has many people who are highly skilled and technically qualified, and at the same time, Japan is also facing a somewhat situation of declining population. And though there are advances in robotics and health that has enabled them to continue, they would definitely benefit from having young people, particularly those who are highly qualified. So some years ago, we had negotiated and agreed upon a special skilled worker arrangement, the SSW, in which there were 14 identified skill sectors that were there for which Indians would get preferential access into Japan and be able to work long term over there. And then they could continue perhaps into other engagement. And this was a big breakthrough. So that, I think, is being extended further because we have negotiated similar mobility partner agreements with the various other countries, and Japan will be a key player in this. But particularly significant in that, in the mobility partnership, is how we nurture the young generation and new age jobs. These are not necessarily the same, but there is sometimes a connection. So one of the things that you're finding is that the kind of opportunities for Indian scholars and researchers is expanding very rapidly in the Japanese higher education system. They're also expanding, having much more of English language education. So many more Indians are interested. And Japan, of course, has very high standards of education and science and technology in particular. So there is a mutual benefit in that. The second part of that is what we are doing is looking and identifying what are the new age jobs, because the new age jobs are somewhat different from the traditional jobs of technicians and mechanics or agriculturists. And these would involve, people who are working on digital content, people who are working in the cyberspace, cybersecurity, people who are working on various aspects of the entertainment industry. And there is much greater cooperation between the two sides at the official levels to try and hone in on the skills that can actually promote these exchanges between the two sides. So we are really on a future-oriented track with Japan so far as the mobility patterns are concerned. And this is a great opportunity for Indian youth to explore these options in Japan today.
Okay, it's around 9 p.m. in the night in Japan, and we just saw the Tokyo sky tree lit up in Indian tricolors. Finally, sir, as we wind up this discussion, how far would you say that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Japan has further deepened and strengthened India-Japan relations in various fields?
I was posted in Japan about a decade and a half ago, so I have seen Japan very closely. And I was there last summer on a lecture tour, and I was able to meet with a number of academics and scholars, as well as with some of the officials to get a sense. And I must say that in this decade and a half, there has been a transformational change that has come about in India-Japan relations. There is a much greater sense of trust, definitely, much greater sense of confidence, and a much greater sense of optimism about the future. The way that the two people are connected with each other, the Japanese people who visit India in very large numbers, are very deeply engaged in our culture and society, and who do very deep research into our civilization, are actually, in a sense, also the ambassadors of India when they go back to India, when they go back to Japan, and they share their experiences of what they have been through in India. So in many ways, this is a very diverse and vibrant relationship. And to see the colors on the Tokyo Tower is of the national tricolor is definitely a sight that warms the heart.
Indeed. We leave it here. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, for being with us and giving us your insight on the developing and evolving India-Japan partnership. Thank you for being with us. Still to come on DD India NewsHour. The US approves the potential sale of long-range cruise missiles to Ukraine for an estimated $825 million after Russia's blitz on Kiev. Britain, France and Germany move to reimpose UN sanctions on Iran over its disputed nuclear program. And US Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook challenges Donald Trump's move to fire her in court. Welcome back. You're watching the India NewsHour. I am Tanvi Taneja. In another crushing blow to the Shinawatra political dynasty, Thailand's constitutional court dismissed Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra from office on Friday for ethics violation. 39-year-old Paetongtarn was the country's youngest prime minister and the sixth leader from the billionaire Shinawatra family to be forced out of office either by the courts or by the military. In its verdict, the court said Paetongtarn violated ethics in a leaked June telephone call during which she appeared to kowtow to Cambodia's former leader Hun Sen when both countries were at the brink of an armed border conflict. On to the Russia-Ukraine conflict now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged Western allies on Thursday to send a strong joint signal to Russian President Vladimir Putin after over 20 were killed in one of the deadliest attacks on Kiev since 2022. Zelensky said Europe must clearly define security guarantees. Zelensky, in a virtual meeting with Polish President Karol Nawrocki and the leaders of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and Denmark, said that it was important to produce a clear definition of security guarantees for Ukraine as part of a plan to secure a peace settlement with Russia. He said Ukraine needed a solid basis for security guarantees that US President Donald Trump has agreed to and that have been under discussion for a week. Zelensky further said that Ukraine believed Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin was still interested only in continuing the conflict. White House said that US President Donald Trump is not happy with Russian strike on Ukrainian capital Kiev. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in a press briefing said Trump was unhappy but not surprised by the deadly strikes on Kiev.
He was not happy about this news, but he was also not surprised. These are two countries that have been at war for a very long time. Russia launched this attack on Kyiv, and likewise, Ukraine recently dealt a blow to Russia's oil refineries. They have taken out, as a matter of fact, 20% of Russia's oil refinery capacity over the course of their attacks throughout the month of August. So the president is continuing to watch this intently, and this killing, unfortunately, will continue as long as the war continues, which is why the president wants it to end. And that's why he's worked harder than anyone to end this war.
The US State Department has approved a potential sale of air-launched cruise missiles and related equipment to Ukraine for an estimated $825 million. The potential sale of 3,350 extended-range attack munition missiles include GPS guidance kits and electronic warfare defenses for the weapons. The package also includes support equipment, mission planning software, spares and technical support. Kiev will make the purchase with funding from Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway and a loan guarantee from the United States. The proposed sale will improve Ukraine's capability to meet current and future threats by further equipping it to conduct self-defense and regional security missions. Meanwhile, Britain's foreign minister said on Thursday that he had summoned the Russian ambassador to the UK after Russia pounded Ukraine with missiles and drones overnight, killing several people and damaging buildings, including the British Council in Kiev. UK Foreign Minister David Lammy, in a social media post, informed about summoning the Russian envoy. He further said that the killing and destruction must stop. Britain, France and Germany on Thursday launched a 30-day process to reimpose UN sanctions on Iran over its disputed nuclear program. Iran has accused the three European powers of harming diplomacy and vowed that Tehran would not bow to pressure over the move by the E3 to launch the so-called snapback mechanism. The three powers feared that they would otherwise lose the prerogative in mid-October to restore sanctions on Tehran that were lifted under a 2015 nuclear accord with world powers. Iran and the E3 have held several rounds of talks since Israel and the US bombed its nuclear installations in mid-June. But the E3 deemed that talks in Geneva on Tuesday did not yield sufficient signals of readiness for a new deal from Iran. The E3 acted on Thursday over accusations that Iran has violated the 2015 deal that aimed to prevent it from developing nuclear weapons capability. The E3, along with Russia, China and the United States, were party to that accord. Russia has condemned a decision by Britain, Germany and France to launch a process that could reimpose UN sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program. Russia said that the three European countries launched a snapback mechanism on Thursday over accusations that Iran has violated a 2015 deal.
We strongly condemn these actions by the European countries and call on the international community to reject them. Such manipulations cannot involve any obligations for other states.
Meanwhile, the United Nations on Thursday called on Iran and major powers to seize the momentum to strike a nuclear deal. Spokesperson for Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Stephanie Dujarric, said that the UN chief urged the Security Council and its participants of the Iran nuclear deal to continue negotiations to find a diplomatic solution that ensures the peaceful nature of the Iranian nuclear program and brings about economic benefits to the people of Iran. He emphasized the limited time frame for progress, noting that in the next 30 days there is a window of opportunity to avoid any further escalation and find a way forward that serves peace. The United Nations Security Council on Thursday unanimously extended for a final time a long-running peacekeeping mission in Lebanon until the end of 2026. The operation will then begin a year-long orderly and safe drawdown and withdrawal. The UN interim force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, was established in 1978 that patrols Lebanon's southern border with Israel. The 15-member council unanimously adopted a French-drafted resolution after a compromise was reached with the United States, a veto-wielding council member. This will be the last time the United States will support an extension of UNIFIL, said acting U.S. ambassador to the UN, Dorothy Shea. UNIFIL's mandate was expanded in 2006 to allow peacekeepers to help the Lebanese army keep parts of the south free of weapons or armed personnel other than those of the Lebanese state. On to the U.S. now. Washington will begin implementing new tariffs on small packages from around the world from today, ending a loophole that has allowed billions of dollars of goods to enter the country duty-free. President Donald Trump's administration is abolishing a rule on Friday that allows packages valued at $800 or below to enter the United States duty-free. Instead, packages will either be subject to the tariff level applicable to their country of origin or face a specific duty ranging from $80 to $200 per item. Postal services, including in France, Germany, Italy, India, Australia and Japan, earlier said most US-bound packages would no longer be accepted. On Tuesday, the United Nations Universal Postal Union said that 25 member countries' postal operators had suspended outbound postal services to the U.S. U.S. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook has filed a lawsuit on Thursday to challenge Donald Trump's move to fire her as the president intensified pressure on the independent central bank. Trump had published a letter on his Truth Social platform Monday evening stating that he was removing Lisa Cook from her role and citing accusations of false statements on her mortgage agreements. Cook seeks a decision to confirm her status as a Fed governor, allowing her to continue in her role. Cook also seeks an outcome safeguarding Fed officials' congressionally mandated independence. Cook on Thursday also asked for a temporary restraining order, declaring that Trump's attempt to fire her is unlawful and preventing the Fed from removing her for now. A hearing on that motion has been set for Friday morning. Senior CDC vaccine research and public health leaders who resigned in protest told hundreds of supporters across the street from campus on Thursday that the Trump administration needs to get politics out of public health. The agency is reeling from the firing of CDC chief Susan Monarez, but Monarez, who was confirmed as CDC chief just a month ago, has refused to step down. 4 senior leaders then resigned in protest, citing the alleged spread of misinformation under the Trump administration and political interference in their work. The US CDC, that is US Center for Disease Prevention and Control, departing senior officials left the agency due to changes to its vaccine advisory board and other vaccine policies. Meanwhile, U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said on Thursday that there was a lot of trouble at the CDC a day after Director of CDC Susan Monarez was fired. Kennedy has made sweeping changes to the nation's vaccine policies, including firing all members of the CDC's expert vaccine advisory panel, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, in June. A close associate of Monarez said that the director had resisted changes to vaccine policy advanced by Kennedy that she believed contradicted scientific evidence and could prove to be illegal before being fired on Wednesday. Kennedy replaced them with hand-picked advisors, including several like-minded anti-vaccine activists.
There's a lot of trouble at CDC, and it's going to require getting rid of some people over the long term in order for us to change the institutional culture and bring back pride and self-esteem and make that agency the stellar agency that it's always been. I'm very confident in the political staff that we have down there now that they're going to be able to accomplish that and ensure the competent functionality of that agency.
Still with the United States, mourners gathered on Thursday at a Minneapolis Catholic church after a shooter fired on praying students through the windows of the church, killing 2 children. Officials investigating the deadly shooting said that the gunman was obsessed with targeting children and left behind writings detailing his hatred and admiration for notorious school shooters. U.S. Acting Attorney General for Minnesota, Joseph Thompson, described the shooter's motive as deeply troubling. He said authorities recovered hundreds of pieces of evidence and expressions of hate towards various groups.
The shooter wanted to kill children, defenseless children. The shooter was obsessed with the idea of killing children. The shooter saw the attack as a way to target our most vulnerable among us while they were at their most vulnerable at school and at church. I won't dignify the shooter's words by repeating them. They are horrific and vile. But in short, the shooter wanted to watch children suffer.
Now, following the mass shooting at a Minneapolis Catholic church, Democrats have called for action on gun control. In a news conference, Mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, said that they need a statewide and a federal ban on assault weapons.
We love our children. Make these changes not out of hate. Make them out of a simple and beautiful foundational love for our kids. And so what are we talking about? When we talk about action, we need to talk about the action steps that need to take place. We need a statewide and a federal ban on assault weapons.
On to Asia now. Kim Kyon-hee, the wife of South Korea's ousted former President Yoon Suk-yeol, has been indicted for bribery and other charges on Friday. The charges against Kim, which are punishable by years in prison if she is found guilty, range from stock fraud to suspected bribery. Following the indictment, Kim apologized for causing concerns and said she would make no excuses and face trial. Both Yoon and Kim have been arrested and are in jail, with Yoon already undergoing trial on charges that include insurrection following his ouster in April over a botched bid to impose martial law in December. The couple face separate investigations by special prosecutors appointed after Yoon's removal from office and since Liberal President Lee Jae-myung took office in early June. Special prosecutors investigating the country's martial law crisis also indicted on Friday former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who was appointed by Yoon on charges of abetting insurrection and committing perjury. Still to come on DD India NewsHour. India's index of industrial production recorded a year-on-year growth of 3.5% in July 2025. And Nepal faces a significant cholera outbreak with over 600 infected and 3 dead in Madhya province.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I am Tanvi Taneja. India's index of industrial production recorded a year-on-year growth of 3.5% in July. According to official data, this was driven by 5.4% growth in the manufacturing sector. With the manufacturing sector, 14 of 23 industry groups at National Industrial Classification two-digit level have recorded a positive growth in July this year over July last year. The quick estimates of IIP stand at 155 against 149.8 in July last year. In the industry group, HR coils and sheets of mild steel and flat products of alloy steel have shown significant contribution in growth. Based on a use-based classification, top 3 positive contributors to the growth of IIP are infrastructure, construction goods, intermediate goods and consumer durables. According to latest data released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, India's real GDP grew 7.8% in the first quarter of financial year 2025-26 compared to 6.5% growth during the first quarter of the last fiscal. Nominal GDP has witnessed a growth of 8.8% in the first quarter of this fiscal. Agriculture and allied sector has observed the real gross value-added growth of 3.7% as compared to the growth rate of 1.5% registered in the first quarter of last financial year. Manufacturing and construction sectors registered above 7.5% growth. Tertiary sector recorded 9.3% growth at constant prices compared to 6.8% in the first quarter of the last fiscal. Government final consumption expenditure registered 9.7% growth in nominal terms over the growth rate of 4% in the first quarter of the last fiscal. Gross fixed capital formation recorded 7.8% growth at constant prices compared to 6.7% in the first quarter of the last fiscal. At the 20th CII India-Africa Business Conclave in New Delhi, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal urged India and Africa to work towards doubling bilateral trade by 2030, emphasizing value addition, tech-driven agriculture, renewable energy and healthcare. Goyal highlighted the shift from raw exports to value-added production. India-Africa trade is currently balanced, with India exporting $42.7 billion and importing $40 billion. Goyal pointed to untapped potential, especially in automobiles, where India could expand its $2 billion share of Africa's $20 billion import market.
Cooperation like agriculture, food security, manufacturing and industrialization, the cooperative movement or self-help group movement, the potential to work with each other on education, skill development, capacity building in terms of research and development, innovation, the startup ecosystem, capacity building in healthcare, pharmaceuticals, renewable energy, some of which our honorable ministers alluded to, provides such a wide spectrum of opportunities for mutual benefit.
India's Defence Research and Development Organization's High Energy Materials Research Laboratory has successfully developed the Signal Star naval flare for the Indian Navy's Kalvari-class submarines. This development contributes to Indian Navy's indigenization efforts for its naval assets, supporting the Self-Reliant India initiative. The development of Signal Star naval flare aligns with the broader trend of India's advancements in defence technology. On to neighbouring Nepal now. Nepal is facing a significant cholera outbreak, primarily centred in the Birgunj metropolitan area and its surrounding districts in the Madhesh province. A large number of patients from Prasar and Bharati districts are admitted to hospitals. The outbreak has been officially confirmed by the National Public Health Laboratory, which identified the Vibrio cholerae 1 Ogawa serotype. As of August 28th, there have been over 600 confirmed infections and 3 reported deaths. You're watching DD India NewsHour. Time now for some sporting action. India today is celebrating the National Sports Day with grandeur and enthusiasm, from paying tribute to hockey wizard Major Dhyan Chand to unveiling world-class sporting infrastructure. The day showcased the nation's commitment to nurturing champions of tomorrow. On the occasion, Union Sports Minister Mansukh Mandviya joined athletes and youth in reaffirming India's commitment to a stronger sporting future.
New Delhi witnessed a grand celebration of National Sports Day 2025, marked with tributes, sporting events and infrastructural boosts for athletes. The day began at the National Stadium, where Union Sports Minister Mansukh Mandviya paid floral tribute to hockey wizard Major Dhyan Chand, in whose honor the day is celebrated. Later, the spotlight shifted to Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, which hosted the central celebrations. The event was graced by eminent athletes including Deven Jhajaria, Anju Bobby George, Sumit Antil and Praveen Kumar.
मोदी जी ने फिर से देश में एक स्पोर्ट स्पिरिट डेवलप हो, हमारी विरासत से प्रेरणा लेकर देश को एक अग्रिम तबक्के में स्पोर्ट्स सेक्टर में ले जाने के लिए देश में खेलो इंडिया मुहिम चलाई, देश में फिट इंडिया मुहिम चलाई, देश में बेस्ट स्पोर्ट्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलप हो, इस दिशा में कार्य चालू करा। देश में एलिट एथलीट के लिए टारगेटेड ओलंपिक पोडियम स्कीम चालू करी। दोस्तों, स्पोर्ट्स सेक्टर में रिफॉर्म करते हुए देश में एक बेस्ट स्पोर्ट्स पॉलिसी यानी कि खेलो भारत नीति लास्ट महीने में घोषित करी गई और चौथा रिफॉर्म के रूप में आपने अभी लास्ट पार्लियामेंट सेशन में स्पोर्ट्स गवर्नेंस बिल पारित करके देश को आने वाले 10 साल में दुनिया के 1 से 10वें क्रम में एक स्पोर्टिंग नेशन के रूप में देखने के लिए अपना संकल्प को सिद्ध करने की दिशा में कार्य करा।
On this occasion, Sports Minister inaugurated a newly installed Mondo track at the stadium. Known as the official surface of the Olympics and other major events, Mondo track is designed to enhance athlete performance and reduce injury risk.
I look at this track as a fantastic investment that India has made in their athletes. Not just the athletes of this generation, but the athletes who will be inspired in the next generation to see the performances that happen next month.
Adding to the significance of the day, Sports Minister also met 5 houses of the Sports Authority of India, each named after veteran athletes as a tribute to their legacy. Various sporting events and activities were organized at the JLN Stadium to honor Major Dhyan Chand's unmatched contribution to Indian sports. Sports Minister himself participated in the sporting events organized by Sports Authority of India to create awareness about fitness and sport. National Sports Day is not just a tribute to a sporting legend, but also a reflection of India's growing commitment to building a stronger sporting ecosystem. Narayan Singh's report for DD India, Delhi.
That's all for this edition of DD India NewsHour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.